part of the week is when we talk to Megyn Kelly. Let's do that right now in the United States. The host of the Megyn Kelly Show joins us from the Megyn Kelly studio in the world of Megyn Kelly. Have I said her name enough? Here she is. Hello, Megyn.
Great to be with you, Paul.
Lovely to see you. So one of the nice guys of American politics tried to be nice while running for president and no one wanted him. Tim Scott is out, and where he sends his 1 or 2% of the vote, let's see.
Yeah, that's not really going to make much of a difference. However, I do think it's interesting that Tim Scott, because as Charles C.W. Cook of National Review put it, was actually running for president, decided to bail when he realized it wasn't going to happen. That's exactly what happened with Mike Pence, too. They were actually running for president. They came to the harsh reality it wasn't going to happen. And for the good of the country and themselves, they stepped aside. Chris Christie is not running to be president. Chris Christie is running just to sling mud at Donald Trump as often and as powerfully as he can. And so why doesn't he get out? He's not going to win anything. He has zero chance of getting the nomination. Okay, so he can stay in. He can be somewhat of a spoiler. It's annoying. And honestly, at this point, you could argue it's unpatriotic. Same thing is true for, let's see, I don't know. I mean, I guess that would leave us with 3. You got Vivek, Nikki, and Ron DeSantis after Chris Christie. Now, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis have a shot. Vivek has no shot. I know he has a lot of supporters, but his poll numbers have done this steadily since the first debate. So he's going in the wrong direction, and he wasn't starting up very high. His peak was like 11%, which is around where Ron DeSantis has hovered. But you cannot wrest the nomination away from Haley and DeSantis. And, oh, yeah, there's a matter of Donald Trump, who's 60 points ahead of Vivek, or 55, at 5% support. So what's he doing in there? It's really a head-to-head match at this point between Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. And if one of them doesn't cede the field, they're going to lose again to Donald Trump. So we're in a similar situation to the one we were in 2015-16 when Trump won, despite the fact that there was a majority of the Republican Party who wanted somebody else. They just couldn't agree on who it was. And unless one of these two people bows out, and they're not going to anytime soon, we're going to go right back to where we were, and the rest of the field will not consolidate, and it will remain as it has been, which is Trump's for the taking.
Yeah, I think in the end it has to end up being Trump versus Haley. DeSantis' position on abortion is just a non-starter at 6 weeks going into a national campaign, regardless of anything else. I remember we talked about that at the time. I know the support over time. I know the money, all the rest of it, right? But, I mean, literally when Ohio is passing abortion legislation, places like Kansas, Kentucky, you take your pick. The guy who's the 6-week man out of Florida, he's got no shot, if he even was a chance, of eventually becoming the nominee.
Well, that's why he's kind of backing off of it a little, saying, I really think it's a ground-up issue, it's a bottom-up issue, and it's really up to the states to figure out what they want to do. And that's okay. That's a fine position. But he's also speaking out of both sides of his mouth, because he's kind of referenced, yes, I'd sign a federal law. Well, which is it? You think it's a federal issue, or you think it's an issue for the states? Because if you think it's a federal issue, that's a very big deal, and it will come back to haunt you as an electoral matter, as opposed to somebody like Vivek or Nikki Haley, who's been sort of forcing it more on a state-by-state experiment from the beginning. I mean, Vivek's been very clear on that. Ron DeSantis has kind of got himself in some trouble there. And I think his biggest problem, though, Paul, is not that he's not going to be palatable for a general electorate. His biggest problem is he doesn't appear to be palatable to the Republican electorate. He's been in this race for a year now plus, and where's the momentum? Where's the surge? Where's the powerful groups behind him driving the poll numbers up? Continue to wait. We're, 2 months now from the first vote? Nothing's happened.
New York Times poll that we spoke about in some detail last week, the deeper version of it has come out in the past couple of days, and it shows Trump on 39, Biden on 35, but then RFK on 25. You've also got Jill Stein, who was there in 2016 running for the Greens, and the Senator Manchin, Joe Manchin, of course, who's getting out of West Virginia, and he's going to go on a national tour, which of course may well mean he ends up as a potential option. Now again, none of these people that aren't the Republican or the Democrat end up becoming the president, but it is really interesting to see that RFK, with all of the crazy, I think he's going to be the candidate for, frankly, the, dare I say, the podcast and Twitter world that don't want to play Biden and Trump again. That's why if he gets 15%, he actually qualifies at a presidential debate. And that would be fascinating to see. First time since Ross Perot back in 92.
I would love to see RFKJ at a presidential debate. He's such an interesting man, and he's got very well-founded opinions on a number of things. And I realize he's a bit conspiratorial, too. He's not right about everything, but good luck challenging him on his facts, because he's got them at the ready and he's prepared to argue them, which will not be the case for either Trump or Biden. But alas, we are in fantasy world because there's not going to be any general election debates. RFKJ would be the only one standing up there with Jill Stein, I guess, because mark my words, Biden's going to say, if it's Biden, I'm not standing up there next to an insurrectionist. I'm not standing up there next to somebody who's a convicted felon, which Trump probably will be by that time, because he can't do it. He can't. We absolutely know he cannot debate against Donald Trump. Just to bring up the things he lied about the first time between the two of them, and their last 3 debates together would be enough to sink him, but forget all of his cognitive abilities and so on. And I think at this point, Paul, Trump may be very happy to take that ticket out, because Trump's lost some spin on his fastball, to put it charitably, himself, and is not exactly a spring chicken. And I'm sure he would love to skip not only the primary debates, but the general election debate as well, and coast right into the presidency, because right now that's how his polls make it look, he's going to do. Now, having said all that, RFKJ, I do think is a potential bad thing for Trump. I think he's probably going to steal more from Trump than he's going to steal from Biden, for sure. I just think Democrats don't really like him. They know he's not really one of them. He's very anti-Democrat in a lot of their key issues. And I think they'll have figured that out for sure by the time we go to Election Day. So I think he's more likely to steal from Trump. But Manchin and Stein are much more likely to steal from Biden. So it could wind up being, I don't know, potentially a bit of a wash, depending on how popular Joe Manchin is. And I know the White House is very worried about Joe Manchin. They think he could get real numbers. Jill Stein spoiled it the last time around for Hillary. She actually did flip the election to Trump. She had enough vote in all those critical swing states that she was a major player, even though she had zero chance. And if Manchin can get even more, if Manchin could get near double digits, I mean, it's a complete game changer. So at this point, it's anybody's bet. We're starting to look more like a European country electing somebody.
Well, I mean, in our country, our government ended up getting formed with, 33% of the vote, because they were able to work together with others. Imagine an American presidency where the person got over the line with a 3 in front of their final vote, as opposed to sort of high 40s, which is where it's previously been. But never say never, because that's the world we live in right now. As you say, we're in fantasy land. We're in pinball crazy, right? Anyone who says they know which way this is going to go, they've got no idea. But you mentioned about Trump and his fastball. The reality is, for multiple times he keeps pretending that Barack Obama is still the president.
But they were interviewing him 2 weeks ago, and they said, what would you advise President Obama? The whole world seems to be exploding and imploding. And he said, it's very simple. He should immediately resign, and they should replace him with President Trump, who kept the world safe.
There's plenty of these things, but I don't know whether people automatically associate that as the cognitive stuff, or just, Trump, he might get sort of 7 out of 10 right, but that's okay because we know his heart's in it, whereas Biden can't walk up the steps of Air Force One.
I don't think there's any comparing what's happening between the two men. I mean, Joe Biden is, every day there's another debacle that makes you feel uncomfortable and embarrassed for him. But there's also no denying that Trump is suffering some cognitive decline. You can see it. He has now 6 times confused the fact that the sitting president is Joe Biden, not Barack Obama. And the first time I thought, well, maybe it's a joke, because there's a belief amongst many that Barack Obama's the puppeteer and Joe Biden is the puppet. So I thought maybe I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But it's happened now repeatedly, over and over and over and over again, where you can see he's not joking. He's not making a thing out of it. He seems to actually say President Obama right now, like as though he's currently president. And of course, as you know, as everyone ages, my God, I'm like, I got 25, 30 years younger than them. I don't know I'm a lot younger than they are. And I forget, I search for a word, I say the wrong word here or there. Imagine 30 years on top of that. There's no question he's stumbling more. And the question is really more for the GOP primary field on whether you want this to be an issue. It's very clear it's a winner for Democrats and Republicans against Joe Biden. He's too old. Everyone agrees. 72% of the country does anyway. Why would you run somebody against him who's got even a toe in the dementia possibilities field? Why wouldn't you pick somebody young and vibrant who's lost nothing off their fastball, right? They appear not to care about this, but I will say Trump's mistakes have happened more and more lately, and he's given fewer and fewer interviews. And I do think it's probably one of the serious downsides of him not doing debates. Everyone up there would be half his age, young enough to be his child in the case of Vivek. I mean, his grandchild? I don't know. And so he's really benefiting by the fact that the Republican electorate seems to be just rolling out the red carpet for him right into the general election without knowing whether he really is still the same guy as he was last time around.
Well, and again, the weirdness of people who say, look, I know all the data says there's a good chance he'll lose, or there's a good chance that these sorts of things become an issue, but he's kind of, for many, the want to either right the wrong of 2020 or the want to pretend it's all still 2016. And obviously, if Trump gets there, it'll be a different type of administration. I would say his id, Steve Bannon's made it very clear ever since he started to move towards his own sort of podcast world about what the plan is for it to be a far more aggressive administration. New York Times doing some reporting about all of this, that Trump would plan to be much more aggressive, including the deploying of military against civilian protests. And the left are now starting to say, well, you can't use the power of the state to go after your political opponents. Hang on, what are they doing to Trump?
It's unbelievable. They're right. You should not use the power of the government against private citizens in that manner. You should not weaponize the DOJ to go after your political enemies, which is another thing Trump is threatening. And they should stop doing that right now. They could still stop this. But the absolute obtuse nature of the op-eds that are coming out by Ruth Marcus in the Washington Post and by correspondents on the air, including Jonathan Karl from ABC, and many more. You get it daily now. How could he do this? Are people not paying attention? He's threatening to weaponize the DOJ and go after his enemies. He's threatening to actually go after somebody who might be giving him a run for his money in the polls by sicking the DOJ on them. Like, hello. That's exactly where do you think he got the idea? So it's amazing to watch them unravel, right, around this idea that was theirs, that they're in the process of implementing right now. It's their greatest hope towards stopping him from actually winning the presidency, but actually at the same time asking us to be indignant over the thought that Trump might do it.
Well, let alone the fact that, as we know, I mean, look, obviously quite a sizable number of those involved in January 6 deserve to go to jail. The ones involved in the assaults or the ones that were breaking down doors and windows. But there were plenty of people who were treated as if they were domestic terrorists, sort of held without charge, put into solitary confinement, and there's not a lot of evidence that those people were at the sharp end of things. So again, they've shown their cards, but let's see how it goes. Now, let's talk about
where's that desire to prosecute anybody who disrupts government for all these pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protesters who are shaking the White House gates, trying to scale them, throwing fake blood on the gates, and same thing inside the U.S. Congress, the halls of the U.S. Congress. I don't see the same desire to shut down protests because they might interfere with the business of the government. It's weird.
Now, I thought it was quite polite in the United States when you talk to a woman and you say, ma'am, but for one person, it sent them crazy.
I just have like really bad social anxiety and stuff.
I get you. Miss Perry?
Well, I'm non-binary, so.
Okay. What do you go by?
It's kind of triggering.
Right foot in front of your left? Nope, go back.
I'm sorry, but the whole man thing just like.
I apologize. Let's see if we can move forward from it. You have 0 questions?
No, but I just want to tell you that I suffer from really bad anxiety.
This is the greatest thing I've seen in a long, long time. It's like all of the intersectional teachings from K through 12 education, from college education, from, cultural forces and so on, have been baked into this one woman and then put on dash can for us all to behold. I believe she has anxiety and depression and social anxiety, and that she calls herself non-binary and that she feels some sort of trauma. I don't care. I'm sick of it. Why don't you sit down in a little puddle and just cry all day? The rest of us are going to go on and live fruitful lives. But sister, you get behind the wheel drunk and you're going to jail. Couldn't care less about any trauma you've had. I'm not interested anymore in how these people became the way they became. I'm just interested in crushing them. I'm interested in my children crushing them. I'm interested in re-seizing control of our colleges and our institutions and having smart, healthy, well people run them and shepherd the next generation forward.
I love this video that you've sent us of a hard leftist who, of course, the issue du jour, Israel-Palestine, one of these kind of people that doesn't quite understand that Queers for Palestine doesn't quite have the same ring as it may with, I don't know, Queers for Occupy Wall Street or something. Try to get fellow travellers, but the fellow travellers say, no, we're not with you.
Palestine! Do you know about half of these kids?
Trying to propagate anti-LGBTQ propaganda. He's trying to tell children that they are not allowed to be trans.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not. They're not.
You're wrong.
Listen. In some religions, you can't do that. Yeah, you have to respect that decision.
It's amazing. You knew when you saw all like the BLM, LGBTQ crowd, same group, intersectionality people out there protesting pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas, you knew they hadn't done like a simple Google search, right? Like, what actually happens in Gaza? What is life like for people like me inside Palestine, me, an LGBTQ person, or whatever they call themselves, looking this up. No one has managed to speak with one another about their alleged common cause. And it was a fraught partnership to begin with, and no sooner has it started than it is already falling apart.
Well, I always sort of think too that perhaps a threshold question for whether you can attend one of these protests is which river and what sea? If you can answer that question, and I reckon there's a good chance many of them can't, that they wouldn't be able to get there. But it is just amazing the sort of reflexive left and about what it attaches itself to, and also what I think we have to do in the medium war is turn around and say, hey, it's the same people who were there last year for a different cause. It's the same people that were there 2 years ago for a different cause. It's not a completely brand new group of people that represent, millions of more people that have become awoken to an issue or a problem. There's a certain section of the Western world that latches on to issue du jour and will march in their thousands, and it's basically the same thousands every single time.
Yeah. And you woke white women in suburban America or on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, you didn't think this was a problem when it was Black Lives Matter or was radical gender ideology, because it just made you feel good about yourself and you felt like you were buying insurance such that these mobs would never turn on you because you marched with them. You were an ally. You went woke. Well, guess again, because if you were a Jewish American who fit that profile, they're coming for you right now. They're celebrating those hand gliders coming into Israel and the murder of children. It's happening. So you need to reevaluate your life choices, because many of us were warning against this radicalism when it came in its original form. And now we see it in another form. And what's interesting to me is they're realizing, like the BLM crowd, the LGBTQ crowd is realizing, wait, these people, like, we want to march with them, but they hate us. The pro-Palestinian crowd, they were not out there with the BLMers. They were not out there with the LGBTQ. Like, they have their one cause. They're like, I'm with it. And then you get these glommers from the other woke ideologies around them, like, yeah, shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to shoulder. And at heart, as this video shows, the true pro-Palestinian protesters are like, we hate you. We don't want you. We don't stand in solidarity with you. So I love it because this piece of it, because I see the woke coalition is fracturing. It's fracturing, I think, beyond repair. Those women I spoke of are realizing they marched with the wrong people. They'll glom on to anything. And I think that the people who supported Black Lives Matter and supported the LGBTQ sort of ideology are recognizing it's far more pernicious than they knew. It is not some harmless, like, social experiment for college kids. It's actually leading to the deterioration of every element of our society. And that is why I don't think you can talk those people out of it. If you're woke and you're pushing for this stuff, fine. But the rest of us normies, again, we need to step over these people. We need to push past them, create our own institutions, or reclaim the ones that they now hold, because there's no reasoning with them. They're crazy. It's a religion for them too, and they've been exposed. That's the good news of the insanity that has followed Hamas's terrorist attack.
Best in the business. Our favourite chat all week. Megyn, we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thanks for having me.